Fights, scars, domination, power. A group of male lions known as the Four Musketeers changed the history of the African savanna forever. For years they fought brutal battles, took over territories, and established their dominance in the wild. But within this group, one name stood out, a leader who became a true legend: SCARFACE. His presence wasn't just enforced by fear, but by the mark he carried on his face, a scar that made him the most famous lion in the world. This is Ordinary, and today you'll learn the true story of the Savannah's greatest icon. SCARFACE and the Four Musketeers weren't just a pack of lions, they were warriors who rewrote the rules of survival, defeated enemies, and ruled their territory for an amazing 14 years. But every reign has its end, and SCARFACE's fate holds a surprising truth. If you want to see what real wildlife is like, hit the like button and join me on this journey. Get ready to discover every detail of this epic saga, from the battles that forged their legend to the final moments of a king of the savannah. Let's go! In the heart of the savannah, where wildlife follows its own rules, four lions became the true owners of the territory. They were known as the Four Musketeers, a band of warriors who challenged the natural hierarchy with relentless domination. Among them, one stood out: SCARFACE. His name didn't yet carry the weight of legend, but he already showed the cunning and strength of a leader. Together, these lions embarked on a journey that would forever change the dynamics of the savannah. But what made them so powerful? What made SCARFACE the most feared and respected of them all? The reign of the Four Musketeers began to gain strength in 2011, when they united to conquer territory. They were natural strategists, attacking with precision and patience. Each battle won was another step towards absolute dominance of the region. It wasn't just brute force, it was intelligence. Like true generals on a battlefield, they knew when to advance and when to retreat. The alliance between these four lions made them unstoppable, as if they were sculpted by fate itself to rule the savannah. But the wild world is cruel, and power always comes at a price. As they expanded their influence, SCARFACE and his allies faced constant challenges. Other lions, equally thirsty for domination, tried to overthrow them at any cost. With each victory, the group's fame grew, as did the tension among their rivals. Being a king in the wild didn't just mean conquering a throne, it meant defending it every day. And SCARFACE, from early on, showed that he was willing to fight to his last breath for his reign. Time passed, and the Four Musketeers became living legends. They not only survived in an environment where few can, but they thrived. For 14 years, their presence was synonymous with strength and leadership. SCARFACE, even among his brothers in battle, stood out. His gaze, his posture, his presence, everything about him conveyed the essence of a true leader. But what truly set him apart was yet to come, something that would mark his name forever. It was in the midst of one of these battles that fate sealed its signature on SCARFACE. A fierce confrontation against a rival group brought an irreversible change to the lion's appearance. He would not escape unscathed. With a direct hit, a scar appeared on his right eye, making him instantly recognizable. At that moment, he ceased to be just one of the Four Musketeers. He became a symbol. The wild had shaped his appearance, but his essence had been untamed from the beginning. This scar wasn't just a physical mark, it was a testament to the battles he faced, the nights he roared at the sky, the times he protected his pride, and the price one pays for power. SCARFACE was destined to be remembered, but his story was far from over. His name would cross borders and enchant even those who had never set foot in the savannah. The reign of the Four Musketeers wasn't built solely on imposing roars and majestic walks through the savannah. It was carved in the blood of defeated enemies, in battles that tested the strength and resilience of these lions. SCARFACE and his brothers knew that, in the wild, there is no truce. To keep a territory, you had to fight for it. And that's exactly what they did. For years they faced dominant lions, challenged entire prides, and destroyed any threat that tried to rise against them. Every fight was a battle for survival. There was no room for error. The price of a mistake was death. But Scarface and his allies had something other lions didn't: a sharp strategy and an unbreakable connection. They didn't fight alone. When one attacked, the others covered his back. When one retreated, it was because another was already advancing. This synchronicity made them unbeatable. In a short time, 9 lions who once ruled the region were dethroned by the musketeers. The savannah now belonged to them. But with every victory, new enemies emerged. Other males, young and strong, came to test the group's resilience. They wanted a piece of that empire, a territory where they could build their own reign. And Scarface knew, whoever reigns needs to defend their crown every single day. The pecking order in the wild isn't set in stone, it's a constant war. No battle was just about the present, it was also a warning for the future. The more fights they won, the bigger their reputation grew, and the more challengers appeared. It was in one of these confrontations that Scarface suffered a blow that would change his appearance forever. The impact of an enemy claw hit his right eye, leaving a deep scar. Blood flowed, but he didn't back down. He kept fighting, as if the pain didn't exist. There, amidst the dust and the roars, Scarface not only survived, he became an icon. His new mark was more than a war wound. It was a trophy, proof of his resilience and the brutality needed to stay on top. Scarface's fame began to spread. He wasn't just another dominant lion. He was a survivor, a warrior marked by fate itself. Tourists visiting the savannah started looking for him, eager to see up close the one who carried on his face the story of so many battles. His gaze, half hidden by the scar, conveyed something few animals could express, a mixture of fierceness and wisdom. And so, without ever asking for it, Scarface began to become a living legend of the wild. But the war never ends for a king. While Scarface was becoming a star on the savannah, the world around him continued to change. His reign did not go unnoticed, and his enemies did not give up. What would come next would not just be a battle for territory, but the beginning of a transformation that would take him to a new level. And with that, to immortality. The scar on Scarface's right eye wasn't just a war wound. It was the seal that destiny placed upon him, transforming him into an icon of the savannah. For a lion, battles leave invisible marks etched in memory on the body and in the hierarchy of the wild. But Scarface's was different. It didn't just tell a story, it created a legend. His gaze, half covered, carried the weight of every battle he had ever faced. Whoever saw him knew that this lion was no ordinary lion. The visual impact of the scar was powerful. While other lions tried to command respect with size and strength, Scarface dominated with his gaze. His presence was enough to silence any threat. Wildlife obeys a ruthless code. The strongest rule, the weakest disappear. Scarface understood this better than anyone. His mark didn't weaken him. On the contrary, it became his signature. The lion who carried death in his gaze and the past on his face. A symbol that, on the savannah, survival itself is a victory. Over time, his scar became a symbol of respect and domination. Other lions hesitated before challenging him. He didn't need to fight all the time. Often his mere presence was enough to make his rivals back down. Life on the savannah is cruel, and no one wants to face a king marked by survival. But not everyone was intimidated. Young aspirants to the throne saw Scarface as a target, a stepping stone to their own rise. And so, the most famous lion in Africa continued in a silent battle, fighting against time, nature, and the predators that surrounded him. But it wasn't just the lions who noticed his transformation. Humans also began to see him differently. Photographers, researchers, and tourists started searching for him in the vastness of the savannah, eager to capture his image. Scarface wasn't just a lion, he had become a phenomenon. A true king who awakened fascination and admiration. Every click of the cameras was a tribute to his story, and his fame spread beyond the borders of the territory he conquered. From this moment on, Scarface was no longer just a predator. He became an ambassador of the wild, a symbol of the struggle for survival. It was as if nature itself had chosen a representative to show the world the brutality and beauty of the savannah. His name echoed in documentaries, his photos illustrated news reports, and his story came to life in the mouths of tour guides who told about the lion who defied death and became immortal. But no reign lasts forever. While Scarface shone in the spotlight, the reality of the jungle ran its course. Age advanced, challenges multiplied, and the same savannah that once made him king began to set the stage for his next phase. The reign that seemed unshakable began to show signs of wear, and, as always happens in nature, a new cycle was about to begin. Scarface's destiny wasn't just to rule the savannah, it was to transcend the boundaries of wildlife and become a global icon. His scar, his majesty, and his journey made him one of the most photographed and studied lions in history. With each new image captured, his fierce gaze and battle scar traveled the world, appearing on magazine covers, documentaries, and wildlife campaigns. For many, Scarface wasn't just an animal. He was a living legend, a symbol of struggle and survival. Tourists traveled thousands of miles to see him up close. Safaris filled his routes, hoping for a glimpse of the one who ruled the territory for years. Guides told his story as if they were narrating an epic, and those lucky enough to witness his presence knew they were before something rare. He wasn't just a lion, he was a living legend. The savannah was full of lions, but none carried the weight of history like Scarface. With fame came curiosity. Researchers began to study his behavior, documenting his leadership, his battle strategies, and even his way of interacting with humans. Unlike other lions, he didn't seem bothered by the presence of cameras. His gaze, marked by the scar, stared at the photographers as if he knew exactly the impact he made. Some said he understood his own status, that he carried the majesty of a true king aware of his reign. But being a celebrity on the savannah has its price. The more famous Scarface became, the more his routine was monitored. Humans followed every step, every rest under the trees, every movement alongside his pride. Wildlife, which has always been a game of survival, now also included the challenge of dealing with fame. Documentaries recorded his journey, while the internet filled with videos and photos, cementing his position as the most famous lion in the world. However, while the cameras captured his greatness, time continued its relentless march. Scarface was no longer the young warrior who dethroned rivals. His body was beginning to feel the weight of the years, and the same savannah that exalted him also reminded him of a brutal truth: no king rules forever. His brothers, the Four Musketeers, were no longer all by his side, and new threats were emerging on the horizon. The one who was once a conqueror now became a living legend about to face his final battle. Wildlife doesn't allow for weaknesses, and Scarface knew the end of his reign was only a matter of time. But a true king doesn't fear death, he just prepares for his final act. Time is relentless, even for kings. For years, Scarface ruled his territory with the majesty of a true monarch of the savannah. But the days of absolute dominance began to give way to signs of wear and tear. His movements were no longer so agile, his battles became more difficult, and one by one his companions of the Four Musketeers fell. The lion who once led an invincible pride now found himself increasingly alone, surrounded by shadows of the past and threats of the future. The savannah, which once bowed before him, now tested him every day. Younger, stronger lions began to probe his territory, sniffing out weaknesses and opportunities. For a leader, losing strength means losing everything. Scarface knew this. The battles that were once easily won now became risky. The weight of the years, the accumulated scars, and the losses of his allies caused his reign to falter. Survival, which had always been his trademark, became a greater challenge every day. With the decline of his reign, Scarface saw his pride diminish. Females, once loyal to his command, began to stray in search of new protectors. Nature is not sentimental, it demands strength, and Scarface was no longer the unbeatable lion of before. His hold on the territory began to fragment. Young challengers, eager to achieve glory, attacked without hesitation. For the first time in years, Scarface no longer dictated the rules. The lion who built an empire saw his kingdom crumble little by little. But even in the face of imminent defeat, Scarface never ran from a fight. He didn't retreat to die in hiding. He didn't accept submission without resistance. Even weakened, his presence still made an impact. His gaze, marked by the scar that made him legendary, still intimidated. Even in the face of death, he stood tall, reminding everyone that his story would not be erased. His body might fail, but his spirit continued to roar through the savannah. The story of wildlife is written by the eternal cycle of battle and renewal. Scarface, who once dethroned dominant lions and conquered territories, now felt the weight of the same rule he once followed. His reign was coming to an end, not for lack of courage, but because no lion, no matter how legendary, can fight against time. The savannah, which witnessed his rise, now prepared his final chapter. But Scarface wasn't an ordinary lion, and his end wouldn't happen like so many others. His name was already etched in eternity, and his farewell would be fit for a legend. His last roar would echo through the savannah, marking the end of an era. And then, like all great stories, his would reach its final moment. Scarface was no longer the same lion who terrorized rivals and conquered territories. His body carried the weight of years, the scars of ancient battles, and the weariness of a lifetime of domination. His reign had come to an end, but he didn't fall in battle, nor was he defeated by a challenger. Unlike many lions who lose their lives in brutal fights, Scarface defied even this fate. He lived longer than most males of his species, resisting everything that wildlife threw at him. In his final months, Scarface was no longer seen with females or fighting for territory. He wandered alone through the savannah, walking slowly, as if saying goodbye to everything he once owned. Even without his former strength, his gaze still carried the weight of a glorious past. For the guides and tourists who had the privilege of seeing him in these final days, it was like watching the last act of a living legend. He was still Scarface, the lion who survived everything and everyone. Unlike so many kings who fell to the violence of the jungle, Scarface met his end in a rare way. In June of 2021, he lay down under a tree and never got up again. There were no roars of pain, nor a desperate fight for life. He simply rested, surrendering to the fate that no lion can avoid. His body was found at peace, as if he knew his journey was complete. His reign ended, but his name would never be forgotten. News of his death traveled the world quickly. Researchers, photographers, and wildlife lovers mourned the loss of the one who became a symbol of the resilience and majesty of lions. For many, Scarface wasn't just a wild animal. He represented the struggle, the survival, and the grandeur of nature in its purest form. He had become immortal, not in body, but in the memory of all who followed him over the years. The savannah, once the stage for his battles and conquests, now felt his absence. The cycle of life continued. New kings would emerge, new prides would dominate the territory. But no other lion would have the story that Scarface had. His scar, his strength, and his journey would remain as an eternal legacy. Even after death, he remained a legend. The lion who marked an era, the Scarface who defied time. But is his story really over? Or does Scarface in some way still live in the shadows of the savannah, in the roars that echo at night, in the silent respect that other lions feel when they step on the territory that was once his? Some legends never die. They just wait to be told again. Scarface lived as a legend and died as a king. His reign lasted an impressive 14 years, extremely rare for a male lion. From the bloody battles that marked his rise to his final moments on the savannah, his story has been recorded as one of the greatest epics of wildlife. Now the question remains, who will be the next great king of the savannah? The cycle never stops, new lions emerge, prides form, and territories change hands. But one thing is certain, Scarface will never be forgotten. His name echoes as one of the greatest symbols of the wild. Now I want to hear from you. If you could choose a single moment to define Scarface's greatness, what would it be? Do you think anyone else will be able to repeat this feat? Comment below. If you like this content and want to follow more amazing stories like this, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and leave a like. See you in the next video.